Hello everybody, welcome to Screenwriting with Final Draft, the masterclass. We have an exciting 4 weeks to do here, and we're going to take you through the whole process of screenwriting, but also to really get into the software and how it works and the tools available. And and the great thing is that there's a couple options. You can get Final Draft software. We offer it on our digital arts computer stations as well through our library partners. And you can also get the Final Draft mobile version that's available for iPads as well. So iPads, iPhones, and it's a great tool. So it's Final Draft mobile, and that's available through the Apple App Store. So let's get started here. So I just want to thank all our partners in this project. We have the Canada Council for the Arts, and we also have our library partners. So the library partners are where you can access these digital arts computer stations that have Final Draft software loaded on them as well. So it's the Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, and the Wasaga Beach Public Library. So that's really great there to go. And I really encourage everyone to go check out what's on the computers. It's not just the screenwriting software. We have Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve editing software, so you can write your script, but then you can also go and shoot the film, produce the film, edit the film, and so on. So really, really exciting program and all the components that you can access. So all of this public access to digital arts technology. So really go check it out at these library partners and see what's available to offer. So in terms of what we're going to look at today, we're going to look at what is screenwriting. We're going to look at story structure, getting an idea started, and beat boards and what that means and how we can get going in Final Draft. And it's really a great piece of software because you can, what's traditionally would have been done, on a wall or a whiteboard and putting all your ideas out and concepts, you can now achieve in the software. And it has a very similar intuitive approach that's really organic and easy to access. And that's, I think, the great thing about the software is that it's digital, but it has that really organic analog type process where we're probably used to it, like putting notes on recipe cards with marker and saying a character with a red jacket, and then you're like, okay, these are ideas that you're trying to formulate into a script, and how do you formulate these ideas into the script? And it's and then you lose a couple of the cards, or something, your pet knocks it over off the wall, the whiteboard, or it gets erased. So now you have this kind of digital concept of doing the same kind of story structure, ideas, and analysis to figure out, what's available in your story and keeping it somewhere safe, which is in a digital file, but taking that organic and creative process and bringing it all together. Okay, so let's start up. We want to define, what is screenwriting, script writing, screenwriting. What is this? So it's the art and craft of writing a screenplay for media. So screenplays can be original works or adapted from other writing. So we're familiar with things such as adapted from, so books, comic books, the whole like Marvel universe, DC universe, that whole idea. So a lot of things that can be adapted. So we got the original things, and then you got your adapted screenplays too. Screenplays can include the movement, actions, expression, and dialogue of the characters. So they're really, if you think of a script as a blueprint that you use to outline the entire story, you're writing what the audience will see and what they'll hear. And that's really important, what they'll see, what they'll hear. But at the bottom and the most, at the core of all of this is the story structure, and figuring out what that is. And that's really what we're gonna look at today, is how can we get started with that process. So elements of a story, and here's a great Robert McKee, the screenwriting guru. A beautifully told story is a symphonic unity in which structure, setting, character, genre, and idea meld seamlessly. And I like this symphonic unity. So if you think of it like music, and everything's blending together perfectly. To find their harmony, the writer must study the elements of story as if they were instruments of an orchestra, first separately, then in concert. So this is that idea, and we have, there's some past workshops we have available on our YouTube channel, so you can go to tbmcs.ca if you have a chance to check it out, we have our YouTube channel, and you'll see we've done a few screenwriting workshops in the past that go into more detail of these concepts of these individual instruments, if you will. But what we really want to focus on is how can we take this idea and the story writing process and bring it into using the final draft software. So it's going to be a little bit kind of the creative with the technical and how can we make that work, and the best case scenarios to make that work. So think of this again. I love this whole idea of this symphony idea. Is that if you're listening to music and everything comes together, the strings, the brass, the woodwind, percussion, everything's playing together. And that's the same idea as that, when you watch a great, well-crafted film, remember it came from a script. And that script had those elements. So where is it located? What characters are there? What do you hear? What do, maybe even with the score, and what do you see? What do you hear? What is spoken? And how does it unfold? Do you see something important that comes later on in the story in the beginning, like a foreshadowing? Do you see something, a flashback? Do you start linear right from the beginning of the story, moving our way forward? And that whole thing is what is that structure? How is the story told? And you think about, if you're telling a story, think of that whole idea. If you're around a campfire, it's summer, we're sitting around a campfire, how do you tell the story? And maybe you allude to something, and think of that kind of foreshadowing. It's like, I'm going to tell you a ghost story. That's a foreshadowing that could be done in a script. Similarly, where you see this element of a ghost right in the beginning before the story unfolds. So maybe there's a ghost walking through a house and scares the new owners. That would be that kind of foreshadowing that is showing you what's going to happen on later in the story. But that's the same idea as if you're sitting around a campfire and you're saying, I'm going to tell you this ghost story of what happened in this mansion in 1921. That's that foreshadowing, right, of giving that narration ahead of time. So think about how to tell a great story, and that's how you can write a great story, right? So really, really interesting ideas. Okay, so the 3-act story structure, this is what we're going to really look at, and it's a roadmap, and we're going to use this roadmap to write our script and to work on it in final draft. So we can have this 3-act story structure. So it starts with Act 1, which is our establishing act. Act 2, our build. Act 3, our resolve or resolution. And this is also the same idea of a beginning, a middle, and an end. So Act 1, establishing things, that's the beginning. Act 2, that's the middle, right? We're building to a climax. Act 3 is the end or the resolution. So we have the inciting incident, and here's a couple key points. Inciting incident, something's happening to propel the story forward. A character arrives at this new mansion. And before that, like I said, we might have had this foreshadowing of a ghost is roaming the hallways and spooks the new owner. So we're like, okay, this is what will happen. And the inciting incident is this person is told they have to come and visit the mansion of their great aunt who had just passed away, and it needs to be auctioned off to charity. So the person, this niece has to come there and inspect the mansion and get it ready for that, to auction all the items off so that the proceeds can go to charity. Inciting incident, right? Then plot point 1, the ghost shows up. So that's kind of our establishing point. Midpoint, rising action. The ghost starts to impede on this preparation work. Plot point 2, the auction is there's some conflicts in terms of how the auction is being made, and the person who is coming to bid. Proxy bidding is the ex-husband of the great aunt, and the ghost doesn't want that to proceed. So a big plot point 2. Climax, the ghost interferes in the auction and prevents it from happening, and leaves everything to the niece. And we find out the charity is owned by the ex-husband of this great aunt, and so on. So you can see how complex it gets. The resolution is that it all comes together, and the niece starts a charity that's what the great aunt really intended it to be, and it's all resolved and so on. So that's a great three-act story structure for a long film, but that's kind of the idea. So, where is this coming from? I'm coming, from some story concepts of some familiar situations that I've experienced in life and through family and so on to create that kind of a story. I love ghost stories, so it's something that I like to tell, or like a kind of a good horror film or a thriller film. So yeah, I build those elements together, and I can then easily, create this kind of a three-act story structure in on the spot, like I just did now. And that's the same idea. So that's what we want to do. So what does this all mean? The controlling idea is really key to figure out what we want to do. So expressed in a single sentence describing how my life undergoes change from one condition of existence at the beginning to another at the end. This is the purest form. So that single sentence is really key in developing what our idea is going to be. So an unjust negative world returns to justice positive, right? So a ghost restores the proper charitable intentions of the recently deceased great aunt. That kind of idea, controlling idea. So that's what's happening. And then we got into more details from there. So happiness fills our lives when we learn to love unconditionally. So these kind of controlling ideas. I'd go beyond that and then say, we're going to do into a one line is, from that controlling idea. I like to go into what's called a one line. And the one line is really, in one sentence, what is the whole story about? So, that one sentence. So a ghost roams the hallway of a deceased aunt's mansion with the niece arriving to sell the assets for towards a charitable donation, only to have the plan foiled by her aunt's ex-husband, something like that. So one sentence, you get the whole kind of idea. I don't have to reveal necessarily what the end is going to be in that one line. And I think that's the important thing. What's the difference between the controlling idea and the one line? And that's, I think, a big difference between the two. Is the controlling idea is that overall theme from, the beginning, middle, and end in a way, right? So an unjust negative world returns to justice, right? So the beginning, the end, the middle is there's that return point. Something has to happen. So that you can see the one line, I'm trying to put that, what is the overall plot, but I probably don't want to have that full resolution there to show that, the niece creates a new charity out of this and, foils the plan of the great aunt's ex-husband, and because through the help of the ghost, like that whole idea, I wouldn't put that in the one line, but by having that one line, we need to know that that's there, but we want to kind of exclude it if you're ever pitching that one line. So anyways, I digress a bit, but that's the fun part of figuring out what your script is going to be. And it's a really exciting part in the beginning, because you're putting down the foundation for, like Robert McKee said, a symphony. What is the foundation? What will that overall theme of the symphony be? What will it sound like? So that the foundation's key is that what key is it going to be in, for example? It's going to be in a minor key. It's going to be spookier, that kind of idea. So it's really fun to get that going. Okay, so story climax. This is really important. So the positive, negative assertion of the same idea, contested back and forth, and it builds until the crisis collides head on, and eventually, the story climax arises out of this, and one or the other succeeds. So in my example, it's the rhythm of positive, negative, or idea versus counter idea. So that's the niece is the real positive. She's trying to do right for her great aunt and get the proceeds of this auction of her mansion and all the items and assets in it to the charity. But the counter idea is that her ex-husband is this charity, and he's trying to buy all of these items and take all the profits from the sales of the items, so that he can just take everything essentially at no cost, right? Like it's just going to go from one to the other. He's going to pay for it. It's all the money's going to funnel back into his charity, that whole idea. So the positive in that really negative idea where, the aunt's intention of it going to charity is foiled, So that's the whole idea. The climax is that the niece stops that from happening, prevents it with the help of the ghost, sends the ex-husband away into police custody for this fraud charge of creating this fake charity, and we go from there. So that's the climax, and then the resolution continues from there. But the climax would be that point where that whole plan is foiled during the auction, and the ghost stops it from going to this ex-husband. That would be the climax in that example. Okay, so getting an idea started, and I think this is really, this is the biggest thing. People will always ask, how do you get a story idea started? How do you make this work? And it's really, really, it could be overwhelming to think about doing a 90-minute film. So I say, look, start with a short script. Start with something that's maybe 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes maximum. Start with a short that has the same structure, because if you can do a really great 10-minute script, you'll be able to do a great 100-minute script. So what does that mean? So page-wise, this is some great early concepts. So page-wise, one page of a final script and final draft format is 1 minute of screen time, approximately. So heavy dialogue scenes might end up being a little bit longer, heavy description scenes where you're describing the type of woods, the type of trees, the type of car driving. Again, a lot of that description can take a lot longer depending on the shots. Like an establishing shot could be 3 minutes of traveling through the woods with a car, but it could read as 3 sentences. So generally, one page is 1 minute of final screen time, and it averages out that way. It's this kind of magic that seems to happen roughly. If 75 pages of script ends up being about 75 minutes. Somehow it just works that way. It's pretty an amazing idea of the format kind of equals the minutes, and it's amazing when you think of that can happen. So that's the first thing. So getting an idea started, start with the micro, and then you can go into the bigger, the macro kind of idea. So start with an idea, write one sentence that has a beginning, middle, and end. And that is that one line that I was proposing is, a great way to start. The one sentence, beginning, middle, and end. So again, our ghost story, right? So what's the beginning, right? So a ghost roams the halls of a mansion of a recently deceased great aunt, whose niece comes to sell the assets and mansion with the proceeds going to charity, only to learn the dark truth of the matter, right? So that's kind of that one sentence. But in our thing, we'd also have the ending. So, the niece foils the plans of her great aunt's ex-husband's plan to rob the charitable intent of the aunt and to seize the assets and mansion for himself. So that would be the beginning, middle, end, and then the end that the niece foils the plan with the ghost. So that whole idea, how do you write? It's a big sentence, but you want to be able to cover it into the beginning, middle, and end. Right, so let's say it again. I ramble on there. A niece arrives to her recently deceased great aunt's mansion to find find out it is haunted by a ghost, who assists her to realize that the charitable auction of the mansion and its assets should not go to the aunt's great husband, and instead should rightfully go to the charity as intended. That kind of idea. So that would be the one sentence. Okay, so now here's a big thing. Use stories that are familiar when working on your first scripts. Write what you know. It's really daunting and challenging to say, I'm going to write a historical drama about Vikings, and we're gonna arriving to Italy, and creating all this stuff. That's a lot of work. How do you research all of this? How do you, and unless it's something right? So if that's what you've written your a history major, you've written your master's and your doctoral dissertation on this idea, great. definitely that's what you know, so write about it. But if this is something you don't know, write something that's familiar. So if someone is struggling, maybe they just lost their job to downsizing because of the pandemic situation, and they're having to move and travel across the country to find another job in another place and so on. That's a great story. And that's something it could be something, someone that maybe it's happening to you, but write what you know, and people will relate to that right away, because they will understand, hey, that's a familiar story. I can relate to the character. And how real it's going to be if it comes from your knowledge base. It comes from your life, from your knowledge base, from the people the characters will be vivid and real. You won't have to dig that deep to make stuff up if you write what you know. And we see this a lot, and whole production companies and things, you'll see that they're making shows, and you'll see the themes are very similar, because usually the producers and the directors have a similar kind of idea of what they know. So I'm even recently there's a one company I've been following, and really they're looking at shows within small towns and like cottage country and so on, and it's really something that is known by the company. If you're located in the area, that's what you're doing, right? So think of it that way. If you also have recent family things, situations, family drama, that's great. People can relate to that a lot. Think of how great you feel when you watch some sort of a movie about a specific dramatic event that's affecting a mother-daughter that are they haven't seen each other for a long time, or the mother's disowned the daughter. She's coming to return to try to make amends. These kinds of stories, you can relate to, or someone and so on, and that's great. These human dramas are fantastic. And why do they work? Because they're usually written by someone who knows about that, either a family member, a friend, and so on. So if you're writing something that comes from the heart and something that you know about, it's going to work really well. So that's how I recommend getting that idea started. So develop the characters that are required to tell the story. So really your supporting characters, your protagonist and antagonist, right? So in my example, the protagonist is the niece, the antagonist is the great aunt's ex-husband. So that's the protagonist, antagonist. Really simple and clear. Main, supporting, right? So the main characters would be the niece, the ghost. Supporting characters would be everyone else around that story. Main would be the ex-husband as well. If we're doing some flashbacks, the aunt could be considered a main character as well. So that's kind of, what do I need to tell the story? That's it. Some supporting characters, but don't think about adding just characters because, hey, I like that would be funny. Like, think about what's really needed to tell the story, and that's really what you want to focus on. The story, the plot points that we looked at, right? That 3-act structure. What characters do you need to tell that story? And then here's the next thing. Use a beat board to draft out the overall story structure. So these are beats. These are the moments throughout that 3-act structure that lead from the beginning to middle to climax and end or resolution. And those plot points as well. You might have many, many plot points, twists and turns, right? So again, this is just a generic roadmap. And some maps are very complex through the Amazon River, twisting and turning and so on. And some things might be really, straight, like the, 401 highway, just kind of going through and that's it. And that's okay. But you want to know what that structure is going to be, that there's that beginning, middle, and end, or there's twists and turns with many plot points and so on. So this is where we start to develop things in what's called like a beat board, or what it would have been traditionally on on a whiteboard, or on a bulletin board, or a cork board with recipe cards, that whole kind of idea, and how that would work. So yeah, so this is really how you get things started. Write what you know, get that one sentence going, develop those main characters that you need to tell the story, and then get right into writing with a beat board. Okay, so let's explore now these beginnings and final draft, and how we can do that. So we're gonna look at opening the software, getting started in navigation and so on, and saving the script, naming it, and we're gonna get into the beat board and story structure and how we can start to use that to develop it. So that's really the first steps. So okay, so I'm going to go over here to my my desktop, the computer here. So I just pulled up some information on so Final Draft 12 is what's available now. And again, we have these loaded on the Digital Arts computer stations, and there's also the mobile version that you can then put into your iPad. So the Beatboard, this is kind of what it looks like. So there's powerful story planning. So you can take this Beatboard, and then you can put it within the script. And we're going to go through this whole process. So we're going to look at beats. They can be plot points, character arcs, research, location, anything like that. And this is the Final Draft Beatboard. You can kind of link them and figure out what's going on. And then we can actually start to categorize them into the script. So you can put them into the outline editor, those beats, and then you start to get a script. Then we can add script notes as you write. So as you're sending it to other people to edit and so on, they can do that as well. And the great thing I should mention, so with Final Draft, is that you can, even if you just download the program, anybody can use it as a reading platform. So if you're sharing the script, you don't even need to send it out as a PDF or anything. You can send it out to someone just to read Final Draft, and they wouldn't need to purchase it, but they can just open it as it's kind of like Acrobat Reader to read PDFs. You don't have to be able to create a PDF, but you can always read a PDF with the free Adobe Acrobat Reader. So this Final Draft works the same way. So if I send you a Final Draft script, you can open it and read it in Final Draft without having to buy a full license for it. Okay, so that is kind of the main elements of Final Draft 12. So there's, and then we'll get into this more. So there's night and focus mode and just kind of these settings, and there's reformats, backups, the production, revision modes, and this is what we're going to get into as we go through this. So a lot of people use Final Draft. It's a pretty great industry standard piece of software. So where is it? So you'll find it's going to be like down here in the dock, and you'll find Final Draft, and it has this little F with a pen through it. So I'm going to click on that once. That's going to open it up. And now what you can do is you can actually choose different templates. You can learn Final Draft. It's going to go to the website, and you can go to a bunch of different videos, getting started. So I encourage you to check that out too. So you can go to outline elements, editor, beat boards, flow lines in the beat board, and how everything works. And that whole. So there's tons of videos on this. So my goal is to show you, from the creative standpoint, how do I write these elements? From the technical standpoint, you can access a ton of resources through the Learn Final Draft. And then you can give it a few options here. When you open, you can say launch with most recent file. This will tell you what's new. There's resources, and there's choose a template as well. So I'm going to click on the choose a template. And you can choose different templates here. So US screenplay, stage play, screenplay, Warner Brothers. They give you a bunch of different things. BBC. So I'm just going to use this regular screenplay. Then there's, TV scripts, multicam, single cam, educational, graphic novel ones, Dark Horse graphic novel, plot outline, and so on. So we're going to go right into like a regular screenplay as if it's for a film. So I'm just going to zoom in here again. So again, here's some of the educational, the script, TV, graphic novel, and like text ones too. So you can write a novel in here as well, or do like a treatment and that kind of process. So I'm going to work in the script. We're going to also talk about treatments, because there's this is the fun thing. It's just kind of like with video editing, and there's always there's probably a dozen ways to do things, and it'll lead you into the script. So I'm not at any point saying this is how you have to do it. I'm just showing some ideas of how you can do it, and then it's up to you to think about what works best, and how it can work for you in the screenwriting process, and kind of take you through that. So I'm going to take you through a few different options over the next few weeks, but today we're going to start with the beat boards and creating our story structure within those beat boards. So okay, so I'm going to create a new script, new screenplay, and it's going to show up like this: untitled screenplay, and so on. Now within this, we're going to look at preferences. So there's a couple preferences here. I like, when you go to preferences under Final Draft, you can go day mode or night mode. Day mode, watch this, it goes with a white paper like that. So depending, you can probably see this too, even while we're online here, that it's pretty bright, and it white and black text and so on. But that looks like a piece of paper, right? So that's kind of the traditional way. What I like to do is first go to preferences. I like to go to night mode, and I know it's really designed for like writing during nighttime, but I prefer this on my eyes, that I see white text with the gray background. So I'm going to use night mode, but you might very well like to use the day mode, which would be white with black text. So that's how you change those two. Now what I want to do, it's really important, is I'm going to save as. So I'm going to go up to File, I'm going to go Save As, and I'm going to figure out where it should go. So by default, it's going to say go to Documents, and that would be like your documents on the computer. But what we want to do is, if we're ever in somewhere, we want to put it like on an external hard drive. So I'm not just leaving it on the desktop. So let's say this is my external hard drive, and I'm going to go to the TBMCS Masterclass. I'm going to create a new folder and say Final Draft Masterclass Scripts. Create. It's going to go in there, and I'm going to do the Ghost in a Mansion. Let's call it Draft 1. And this is, again, very early on. We'll have probably more than just, the Draft 1 is, we're going to get into the beat boards, but we want to call it something. So now it's saved. Where is it saved? So I'm going to go right to that drive. External hard drive, right? So I've plugged that in. I'm going to go to the TBMCS Masterclass. I'm going to go right here, Final Draft, and here's the script. So it's a .fdx file, Ghost in a Mansion Draft 1, 56 kilobytes, because there's really nothing in it yet, and we've saved it on an external drive. This is what I recommend in terms of the workflow for yourself and for computers. Otherwise, it will just default into your documents. That's fine too. So if it's your own computer, you're using it, that's not a problem. But it's also great just to have it on these external drives so that you can take it with you. And then also, I would highly recommend taking that file and then putting it into like a cloud drive, like a Google Drive, or any kind of online file folder in the cloud, so that it's saved and you can access it anywhere. And the Final Draft mobile app is really great, because whatever you're writing on in your iPad, it's saved all into your Apple iCloud. So you can access that file anywhere. So then you can use your same Apple ID, and you can access the file on your Mac or on your MacBook when you're using Final Draft. Okay, so now we have this started, which is great. Ghost in a Mansion Draft 1. We have the night mode that I like to use, and we're going to just look at some of the information here. So on the top here, you're going to see there's a collaboration, there's a split, so you can split vertically, horizontally. So let's say people are talking at the same time, we can do splits like that. Views, this changes the active view, so we can go to like beat board, scene view, index cards, script, normal view, page view. So this will just show me each page. Then I can go to beat boards right here. I can do a title page. Then I have elements, and we'll get in more of these elements into next week. We can track changes, we can show hide things, we can go to navigator, and we can submit feedback to the program as well. In collaboration lets people, you can have writing partners. So you can start writing. If someone else has a final draft, you can put on collaboration and work with other writing partners as well. So it's a really great way. So let's go right to the beat board. And this is really, it's really a cool, great layout. It's super easy to use. So as you'll see here, it says double click to create a beat. So I'm just going to double click and I'm going to say opener. And what do I want it to be? So on these, let's just say Susie, our hero niece, is eating dinner. Ghost walks by. She turns. The ghost flips her sushi takeout off the table. There is a huge mess. So it's kind of funny, but that's kind of my idea. So that would be my opener, right? So that can be like one. And this is the great thing. So as you can see, we start to, it's just like a big like bulletin board or whiteboard. I can just put all these like elements down and maybe I'll flip that around. Maybe that opener doesn't happen right in the beginning. Maybe we see her driving to the mansion first, right? So we're kind of going to work on, but just flowing out of what we spoke about and from my head, this is kind of the story of what I'm thinking. So now I'm going to do another one here. Beat title. So what is this? Okay, so that's the opener. Maybe, you know, I really want to have a cool title sequence, right? So this will be photos of Susie and her family, photos showing Susie with her great aunt in the mansion. One photo seems to have a ghost image in the background. Title appears over that image as ghost image. Fades away. So, you know, kind of a bit of a bigger element. And you can see I can just make these bigger, smaller, and so on. Right, so you can just kind of resize them and you can move them around. You know, where do I want them? And then I can do different colors. So maybe I'll say, you know, I want this to be violet. I want this one to be olive. Right, I can get these different ideas of everything. So it's really that easy just to kind of format everything. So that's my title sequence. Okay, and then here I'm going to say, okay, act 1, and this is just lets me kind of outline what's going to happen, right, in this beat board. And you can, again, you can see visually it can be really great to figure out, and maybe, you know, this one will be blue, or let's go violet as well. So you can see these look the same, right? So that's kind of the idea. And whatever I click on, that's the one that's working on it. So that I'm working on. So Susie drives to mansion of her great aunt. And, you know, maybe I want to make these into parts. Act 1, beat 1. Great aunt to winding road through forest. Mansion is huge and spooky. Just some ideas. Again, just flowing, spooky. Susie enters as cold wind hits her face. Okay, so maybe that's like my first there. Okay, so now here's my next one. Act 1, beat 2, right? And you can see it, you can call it whatever you want, but I'm just kind of going into these like beats of like moments that I want to see happen in the script, and we keep carrying it from there. So Susie looks over furniture and paintings and starts to make a list for auction. Let's go here. Act 1, beat 3. Auctioneer arrives to meet with Susie. He makes her sign an exclusive contract. And he goes over the charity that all proceeds will go to. She signs another contract to allow that. Right? So she's just signing. This is kind of a, some key moments. I wanted to sign away that all these kind of assets that are going to go to the charity. So I'm just going to make these all violet and so on. Now, here's the other thing. So now what I can do is I can right click here and I can connect. And we can do new beat from image. Okay, so I forgot about this. So we have to just, I'm just going to highlight these 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to say let's connect with arrows. And I'll just undo that. So let's just highlight these two. I'm just going to connect these. So with command and right click, connect with arrow. With double arrow, I kind of like that. So that's just kind of telling me, how do I organize this? So beat 1 goes to beat 2, and maybe it's going to go the other way, just to start to give myself some ideas. And you can see what's great about this then is, I can move these around, and these lines stay connected. So it just gives you kind of this extra notation ability to, put these notes together and kind of figure out. So this is what I would then continue on. So your whole script can be written like this. And then what we're going to look at too is next week is taking this, putting it into the outline, and then also using it to create what's called a treatment, and what that means. So you can see the story structure go like this. And what's really cool about it is that I have act 1, beat 2, beat 3, and we can just keep calling it things like this. I can get to here I can say act 2, beat 1, and so on. So you can have a whole bunch of these, and the great thing is that you can scale these. You can move these around and make it bigger or smaller. So you can kind of have a big page layout, right? It can be on like your whole screen, and that's the beauty of it. So let's just here on the green arrow, I'm just going to go full screen like so. And you can see how great this is, like, how much space I can use up, and all these details, and it really lays it out in a great visual way, is all these beats, putting arrows, joining things like this story, this connects to that, and you're also problem solving what's this whole story about, where it's going to go. And as I'm thinking it through, I'm like, oh, this sounds nice, but you're just getting this flow of ideas, nothing fancy, just titles of the beats, putting in what those beats are, what those moments are. I could probably even break those down to even further beats, right? So that kind of idea of the additional beats in this beat board. But this is the cool thing, because that title sequence, I'm like, oh, maybe that's going to be written into it, but maybe that's just the idea. that's just something out there that I kind of like that idea. Maybe that's something I use as a title sequence. Maybe it's something I come to a bit later. But you can see this is all coming from that, that one line, that story, and then you just start to break it down. And all I'm doing is all of these acts are leading towards the climax, which is for Susie to understand that the charity that she's assigned everything to is held and owned, and it's a trick by her great uncle, or former great uncle. It's the ex-husband of her great aunt, and that he's trying to deceive everyone, and that's what we're leading to. And this is why do we have something about her signing an exclusive contract? You might wonder, so the audience will wonder, but we know as the writers that it's going to lead to the fact that the uncle is deceiving everyone, and there's something not kosher about what's happening. So this is the whole thing. So that auctioneer, like that he works for the uncle maybe, right? So we're putting these kind of elements in there. And this is where we can put these additional notes too. So, even if we put another beat element, auctioneer prologue, we see him meeting with a mysterious man, the evil uncle. He is preparing documents for the charity who will receive proceeds of auction of great aunt's assets. Right? And that's great. So, just that kind of, that's something that has to happen. So where does that happen? This could be something that, maybe it happens before, so I go, okay, that's going to become, beat 1A, right? And we can, just these moments, and you figure out, I need that to happen. Where can it happen? And this is the great thing, is that instead of just writing, and now this is a great screen. So this is going to show up autosave. Do you wish to save Ghost in the Mansion? And I say yes. So it's going to keep saving every 10 minutes if you don't save it yourself. So again, I recommend always hitting Command S. That will save it, and you can keep going from there. So this is the great thing, is just getting all of this information, getting these ideas down on the page, and trying to figure out what this story how it will unfold. So these are those kind of beats where, I need the auctioneer to do something, and he's meeting with this mysterious man. When do I show that? Maybe I show that a little bit later. It's a flashback. Maybe do I want the audience to know that? But it's even just for me to know that's what happened, and deciding later, do I need to see it? Do I need to just, is it spoken about? Is there flashback? And this kind of idea. And, this brings us back to this real important element, is that, the rule of screenwriting is that you want to show, don't tell. So everything that you're trying to do is show through what you're writing and what's happening visually, what these characters are. So if I'm showing him, the auctioneer, meeting with someone mysterious and signing some paperwork, I'm starting to, without telling the audience, that prologue helps me show that maybe this auctioneer isn't to be trusted. He has some ulterior motives, and that could be really interesting. So that's, again, how do I show? So just in the beginning, the opener, I have there, I'm showing that there's a ghost, and it's up to mischievous things. It's trying to get Susie's attention. It throws all her takeout sushi all over the kitchen. And, so it's making it difficult, and that's kind of the opener there. It's going to happen a bit later, but it's kind of a foreshadowing of that there's a ghost in the mansion, and that's why the audience will want to stay tuned, because there's this, it's a really kind of bizarre opening, but it's a hook to catch people. So that opener is really important in it. What is that opener going to be? So that's kind of what I think is really neat, is like showing that there's a ghost. It could be something else. It could be that auctioneer prologue. But I'm thinking that's not enough of a hook. I'd really, as an audience, why would I continue watching the film? If I see that scene with the ghost walking by, throws her sushi all over the place. That's pretty intriguing, and I'd want to watch that as a ghost story versus the auctioneer one, where that wouldn't be necessarily as interesting as an opening, but something to work out. And that's why we have this beat board, because this would be the same thing as having it all over your wall in recipe cards on a marker or a whiteboard. And this way it's all brought it into right here. So this is the beginnings of our story structure. So this is what we need to do to start. So I'm going to continue on with this and working out the whole concept. And this is what I want everyone to do as well. So if you even if you don't have the software, work it. You can do it on paper to start. Just do these same concepts, and then it's going to roll really well into using Final Draft. But do the same concepts, work it out, come up with your one line, and then start working out all these beats of what the story is going to be. And then next week we're going to look at how we bring this into an outline, and we start to really structure the story based on the outline, and how we can work on something that's called the treatment. And then we're going to get into the script formatting so that we can write the whole screenplay outside of this. So again, all I'm going to do here to end, I go Command S, and I'm just going to minimize this. And again, I can go File, Save, which is Command S, and everything's saved, right? And if I want to go back to the view, I can go out of the view mode here at the top, and I can go to the script. And you can see there's nothing in the script because we're just working on the beat board. But you can see the beat board quickly gets me back to the beat board, and there's a scene view, and it has all the scenes and all these different views. So back to the beat board, we go like that. We can also go to index cards, and this could be the way to do the script as well. But beat board is kind of a fun thing that the Final Draft offers, and I think it's a great tool to to kind of start to figure out everything that's happening in your script in a very intuitive visual manner. So yeah, that's perfect. So if anybody has any questions in terms of this workshop, or what's happening or anything with the creator space, and questions about screenwriting, or if you want to share some of your ideas of what you're looking to do as a script, please email me, tom@tbmcs.ca. And I also encourage you to go to our website, and you can check out our past workshops on our YouTube channel that have to do with filmmaking, screenwriting, and check those out. So this is a multi-week. So by attending this, you have a digital ticket. You can go on, and you'll get access to the next 3 weeks as well. If you want to rewatch, right after we finish, you'll be able to rewatch these. If you can't catch us live on a session, don't worry. You can always just come back and rewatch it. So if you can't attend live, not a problem. Just you can come back and have that access to rewatch. So everything's recorded, and then you can, from the comfort of your home, you can access the Vimeo links right after. So that's it. That's it for our week 1 of the session. I hope you've had a really great time. I've enjoyed coming up with some concepts, going over what the scripts and stories structure should be, how it will work, and I encourage everyone to start with creating that one line, figure out your beginning, middle, and end in that one sentence, what's your controlling idea, and then work out a beat board of that entire one line into a 3-act script. And then from there, we're going to move on to writing the script, putting it into the outline, and also developing a treatment, and then we'll put it all into a script format. We'll start writing it because it will take a lot of time to do it in real time, but we'll get going all the way through to the script and work those ideas out over the next few weeks. So again, thanks for joining us. I want to thank all our partners, Canadian Council for the Arts. We have our library partners, Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, and the Wasaga Beach Public Library. I will see you guys next week for week 2 of Screenwriting with Final Draft Masterclass. Have a great rest of the day, and take care.